Book 101 review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She's a friendly language coach, no other than Miss Cathy Intro.
Hey Daniel, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here on the podcast with you.
Welcome, Miss Cathy on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
So, maybe explain a bit more what is a brain friendly language coach, maybe a bit abstract for your listeners. So, it's about helping you figure out how your brain works so that you can learn the language faster, more efficiently, and more importantly, that you don't forget everything once you stop practicing. You will forget some, but not all of it, and you can reactivate quicker
Hmm.
and be more confident when you speak.
Awesome. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Miss Cathy. Thank you. And today let's talk about, as you said, helps language learners understand how their brain works and learns best. So tell us, one of the most empowering ideas is that an adult brain can successfully learn a new language. What is the most important piece of neuroscience that disprove the myth of a critical period of adults?
Very interesting question. So it's true that it's you learn differently when you're a kid. You learn more through immersion, but it takes you years and years and years of learning and feedback to learn the language. Whereas when you're an adult, you can blend the immersion and the passive learning with a more active approach and speed up the process. You can go from zero to conversational level in the language in a year or two, depending on how far the language is from your native tongue. So it's a blend of active and passive when you're an adult.
Active and passive indeed. So, Miss Cathy, we often hear about the comprehensible input theory from a brain based perspective. What is actually happening in our neural pathways when we understand just enough of what we are hearing to learn?
So when you understand just enough, so your comfortable level and just a few things that may be out of your immediate reach, but with the context and everything, you will be able to make sense of it. And then your brain can analyze it and store it somewhere in the brain where it makes sense and be like, create a system for the language you're learning. And that's why it's more useful to listen to content that you can understand at least 90% of it, because everything else, if you understand only 10%, your brain will be so overwhelmed that nothing's going to happen, no learning's happening.
Interesting input. Miss Kathy, many learners struggle with a tip of the tongue phenomenon. What is the neuroscience behind this, and what strategies can rewire our brains for faster vocabulary recall?
Yeah, great question. The tip of the tongue phenomenon is when probably something is in your passive knowledge. It's somewhere in your brain, but your conscious brain cannot retrieve it when you need it. And
Mm,
one thing that helps with that is not struggling more to try and find it, is on the contrary, is letting go, learning to relax and let go. And that will help your brain access all the information everywhere, because if you're stressed, it disconnects the path between your subconscious brain and your conscious brain, and then everything that's in your subconscious brain cannot go through to your conscious brain, so you'll never find that word. And that's why you find that word on tip of the tongue word, you'll find it 2 hours later when you've stopped thinking about it and stopped searching. So when you're
mm,
stuck in that moment, find the next best word that you can find and move on.
Yes, move on, and suddenly you will realize or you will remember. Oh, that's the word. You talk about the brain giving different modes for language learning, like the focus versus diffuse modes. How can a learner consciously switch between those to maximize their progress?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by diffused and what was the other term?
Diffuse modes and different modes of learning, like focus.
Right. So the type of activities you would do to practice the language, for example?
Yes. To more focus, or if you have the difficulties to learn, they just, okay, forget it. I don't want to learn this language.
Yeah, so first motivation is super important. You need to understand, to know and identify why are you learning that language? What is that going to change in your life? Even if it's just like a personal challenge. I want to be able to crack the code of that language. Totally valid reason to learn a language, or it could help for your job. Or so if you have that motivation, then you know what you will gain from doing those efforts, and that will help you stay focused on what you need to do to learn. And then it's very important to set an intention when you're watching a movie. Do you want to relax and just absorb the language kind of passively, or do you want to pay attention to certain sentences and try to mimic what the actors say? Do you want to get new vocabulary from that? So set an intention to any action you're doing, and then work in short sessions of work to keep your focus at the maximum.
Yes, keep your focus, people, so that you will learn the language itself. And Miss Kathy, why is forgetting not a failure, but a crucial part of learning process? How does the brain's use to lose it pruning mechanism actually work in our favor long term?
Yeah, so pruning is essential. If you think from the day we are born, we learn new things all the time. We cannot keep cramming information into our brain, it would explode. So the brain cuts out or buries really deeply what is not useful in daily life, what doesn't help us survive, or what we don't practice. The neural pathways that allow us to do those actions or remember those words, over time they get more and more weak. They get weaker as time passes, and after a while the neurons stop talking to each other, so the path is cut. It's still possible to reactivate it. It will take less work. If you've learned something, you forgot it, you can relearn it faster than someone who's never learned it. But that's
Yes.
how it goes. That's why we forget the words. And it's something we cannot avoid, because when we receive a large quantity of information, the brain has to prioritize. So it's going to say, okay, this I keep and I'll store somewhere, this I let go for now and we'll come back to it. And you always need to repeat and repeat and repeat, and that's how you build your skills over time.
If you could have every language learner change just one daily habit based on how the brain works, what would be and why?
Hmm. I think a lot of us are not getting enough input and enough of that comprehensible input in our life. And if we do get enough, then maybe we don't get enough output. So finding that balance between the comprehensible input and the level of output that we want to be able to produce.
The balance indeed. And tell us, Miss Kathy, emotions and stress seems to be a huge blocker. What's the happening to our brain to lag down our ability to speak, and what's a practical ways to calm this response?
Right. Yeah, stress is the main thing that will make us freeze or want to fly, fight, flight, or freeze. So that stress response, because our brain interprets what's happening as a threat, and then the response will be different depending on each person. But the stressor we feel, the trigger, will release some cortisol and other stress hormones, and it will put the body into a state of alert. And your priority is not to think, use your words, and make fancy speeches. Your priority is to fight, run away, or do something with your body. So that's why we kind of freeze and lose the ability to speak and speak in an articulate way. And it's
Mm.
essential as a language learner that we learn how to calm our brain down and regain control over our full brain, and not let the amygdala is the one responsible, the little part of our brain responsible for triggering that response. And we need to be able to calm it down. One way to do it is by breathing. Breathing helps to activate the parasympathetic network and lowers our heart rate. So it's a lot faster to calm ourselves down through breathing and body movement, dancing, something like that, than trying to reason ourselves into, "Oh, calm down." That's not working so well.
Relax, take a deep breath.
Mm.
But it's not working. So, Miss Kathy, tell us, for the learner who feels they are plateaued, what brain based strategy can help them break through the form new higher level of neural connections of their brain?
Mhm. So the first step when you plateau is to analyze where you're at, what you've done so far, what worked, what didn't work, and also where you want to go. Maybe you've plateaued because you don't really know where to go from there. You've reached the level you were aiming for, or at least one step of it, and then you need to reconnect once again with that motivation. What lies behind and beyond what you can actually do at the moment, and connect with that motivation and do a diagnostic, language diagnostic, with a coach, teacher, someone who's able to address both the language skills and the mental blocks as well, and identify the actions that you need to put in place to improve. So it could be different. Maybe you're listening to the same podcasts and read the same books, but you need something a little higher, or higher level, or something that will trigger your interests a bit more or speak to your interests a bit more. So find something that you can really connect with, and then make a list of priorities of language skills or mental blocks you need to overcome and develop.
Yes, definitely. Something to develop within. And Miss Kathy, space repetition is powerful tool. Beyond just using an app, or can you explain why this method is so neurobiological efficient for moving words from short-term to long-term memory?
Yes. Comes back to what we said about the brain forgetting or setting priorities to the information it acquires. And because of this prioritization, there are some things we'll remember or we'll see time and time again that then we'll learn faster. But other things we see not as frequently. And then we need to see them once, twice, and not immediately. We need to give some time to the brain to forget and analyze information, and then come back to it with another level of understanding, and then come back to it. But the brain needs pauses to be able to process all that information we are feeding it. And having repetition, spaced repetition, is what reinforces the circuits, the neural circuits over time, and that keeps them active so they don't get pruned, as we talked about earlier.
Definitely. And Miss Kathy, how does the brain's natural tendency to seek patterns like play into learning grammar? Should we focus on explicit rules or implicit patterns detection?
I think it's a bit of both. There are certain patterns we'll acquire naturally because they're present all around us in everything we read and hear. We'll kind of absorb them. The brain will do its job. I mean, the brain will find the patterns by itself. You don't need to explain it too much. It's self explanatory. The brain will just absorb it. But for some more complex things, if you take English and French, there are some technicalities of French that you don't have in English, and like the position of the words in the sentence or the way of constructing a sentence. These For these points, the more complex grammar, it will help if you have some explanation so that your brain can make sense of it and understand why do I need to learn that thing, and what's the system, how does it work. We need to make the pattern obvious because it's not always obvious. So that's why the teacher will break it down in a way that you can understand. You will reconstruct that concept in your brain, and then you need to practice to make it flow naturally when you want to use it.
Flow naturally. I like that. Miss Kathy, yes. So, as a coach, what are your short term and long term goals?
Um, Short term is working with my one-on-one clients and develop more online courses. So my courses are usually hybrid. There's a part that's online videos that they can watch at their own pace and work on the tasks at their own pace, and also some follow up with me, either group or individual, to help visualize those patterns and then internalize them, answer their questions. I think there's value in having a bit of both. So I want to do more of that so I can help learners who are at the intermediate level, plateauing, struggling to go to a higher French level. I want to help them go to that advanced French level and natural fluency in French.
Miss Kathy, good luck to your goals and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be a coach like you?
Get some training, formal training. Not everyone can say they're a coach, but I've done the neuro language coaching certification and other coaching programs. And there is a lot of value in having professionals going over the rules and the ethics and making obvious what you may have missed. Like talking from your experience is not the same about, say, actually knowing the brain or knowing about the psychology of people and trauma and how to not reinforce traumas or create more traumas as a coach. We have a lot of responsibilities. So, yeah, get some training and then a lot of practice. That's essential.
Well, thank you for that advice, Miss Kathy. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Yeah, so I would recommend. I think it is available in English. The original language is French, and the author is named Kim Thuy. The last name spelled Thuy, and she's a refugee from Vietnam who came to Quebec when she was 10 years old, so to Canada, the francophone province of Canada. And in her books, the one I recommend today is called Ru, Ru. That's the name of the protagonist. And she talks about her journey coming to Canada and how she was welcomed by people there and how she came to love the country and make it her own, and how to she came to love the language as well. So French is not her mother tongue, but now it's her main language, and she writes in French. And I find the style is absolutely beautiful, minimalist, but also very poetic, quite accessible for people who are may not be very advanced in French but want to read in French. It's short and it's just beautiful.
And thank you for that recommended book, Miss Cathy. So tell us, what will be the next for you as a coach?
So I'm also a teacher trainer. So I did the neuro language certification, and now I'm a certified neuro language coach. I also deliver the training for teachers, educators, private teachers who want to become language coaches and know more about the brain. So it's very important that teachers can explain to learners how the brain works, reassure them, and help them become more autonomous in their learning, really empower their learners. We don't want to keep all that language about oh, we don't want to keep all that knowledge about the brain just for ourselves. We want to share it, but it's quite dense. So it's important, as I said, to have like a formal training and learn about all of that and practice. So I want to organize more training sessions. I'm the licensed trainer in Canada. So if anyone listening from Canada, you can reach out to me. There are other trainers in other countries, and the training is delivered in different languages.
Definitely. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, Miss Kathy, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101, love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 are in fourth season. Science 101 and Sex 101 in its second season, and my baby podcast, Law 101, Mental Health 101, and Bible Verses 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Ultimately, Miss Scotty, if understanding how your brain works is the key, what is the first step learner should take to move from being a learner from today?
So I compare the language learning process to a self-development process because language learning challenges you in many ways. So one good way to start is to identify your triggers when you're in the process of learning the language. What are your main obstacles, whether they are mental blocks or the learning, how to learn new skills. I work a lot with neurodivergent people, and they have been taught at school in ways that don't work for them. So as a coach, we want to find the ways that work for them. So take a pen and paper, and make a list of what works for you to learn, what doesn't work. If not even just about languages, but if you think of other skills you've learned in life, how did you learn those skills, and how could you leverage your strength and apply them to the language learning process?
Miss Cathy, what's the common piece of popular language learning advice that is supported by neuroscience and what we should stop following?
So one thing that could can be harmful to some people is the advice of speaking from day one. Speak from day one. It's great to reinforce our neural pathways, but it can put some people in such a state of stress that it will not help them progress. So for some people, it's okay to have a silent phase of weeks, months, and then when they're ready, they've practiced with someone they trust in a safe space. When they're ready, they can speak. But it's useless to start speaking if that's going to create a lot of negative emotions around the language.
Miss Cathy Intro, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch your question.
Yes, can you please invite our listeners to support your business itself?
Still, sorry, I think the sound broke a little bit. And
So, Miss
can you
Cathy,
rephrase?
yes, Miss Cathy, can you please invite our listeners to support your business itself?
Right, sorry. Yeah, you
No.
can go to mypolyglotlife.com, it's my website, and listen to the podcast, My Polyglot Life en français.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Cathy Intro because if you support her for sure, more and more empowering language to learn through your brain. So, Miss Cathy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
Welcome, people. See you soon.